Let's get it. Mike Sempervive here with you for the next hour talking about professional wrestling, which is something we do every single day here on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Tune in, iHeart, American Forces Radio, sportsbyline.com, over-the-air affiliates like KMAV, 99 KMSR, and the mightier 1090. Maybe you're listening on podcast, replay on SiriusXM. Maybe you're video streaming on Twitch or YouTube. However you're joining me today, I'd just like to say thank you. Hopefully, wherever you are, it's sunny outside, and if not, hopefully it's sunny inside your mind. It's an overcast day here on my portion of Delmarva. I don't know what the weather is like where Bryan Alvarez is, but I bet you it's pretty nice because he's playing hooky from work. Hit me up about 45 minutes ago. I got things to do. You got today? I said, sure. He said, hey, make sure that you mention that there's not going to be a Lance show today. No F4 Daily, or Figure 4 Daily with Lance Storm on the website. Nope. But he will be on with us tomorrow on Wrestling Observer Live. That doesn't help you out today, but don't worry. There is something to help you out today and to help me out today. Filthy Tom Lawlor is going to be joining me, and we got a lot to get into. I don't know if he watched NXT last night. I don't even know if we're going to get into NXT. Probably not. I believe that he did. He's giving me the thumbs up right now. And we're going to get his thoughts on that, but I want to get his thoughts on Amazon taking Monday Night Raw. I know he was a proponent of Amazon getting it. I'm sorry, but Netflix, what do you think about Netflix getting it? He was a proponent of Amazon getting it. The last time we talked on the show, we'll get his thoughts on that. We have the lineup for Dark Side of the Ring, making its return to Vice TV. We actually have a 10-show lineup. We'll get to some of the names that are on the docket for this year. We have John Cena announcing that he would love to wrestle his final WWE match in England. And we have Kazuchika Okada leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling without putting over somebody from this generation. Got a ton of other stuff to get into as well because Dynamite's tonight. And we'll get it all started when we get back. Wrestling Observer Live.
There's 1, 2. Now he's got Bryan Alvarez. He whips him into the corner hard. Adam Firestorm following up, catches a boot to the face. Bryan Alvarez with another hard shot to the head. 1, 2. This is the most aggressive I've seen Bryan Alvarez today here in Portland Wrestling. Now he's got his knee across the throat. He's choking him, LC.
Well, it's like this week Alvarez has something to prove, brother. Something to prove to his sweet little lady over there.
Of course, Adam Firestorm with a big win over Black Dragon last week. Looking for another one here. There's a sunset flip. Is he going to go down? Yes, he is. Over he goes. 1, 2, 3. It is all over. Adam Firestorm with the victory over beautiful Bryan Alvarez here in Portland Wrestling. Now out Bryan Alvarez firing away with a boot. Action continues after the bell. Goes for the back body drop. No! Face first plant by Adam Firestorm. Your winner once, looks like he'll be your winner twice. Action continues. There's a whip into the far corner. Adam Firestorm follows with a spinning kick. LC, I think Bryan Alvarez has bit off more than he could chew tonight. Miss Rentone really disgusted over in the corner. Adam Firestorm not done. There's a lion sold on top. He hooks him again. 1, 2. 2.5. I thought we had a 3 count earlier in this match, LC. I was wrong. I'm sorry.
I can't believe it. I thought Youth Gone Wild was just adding a little salt to the wound. I thought Alvarez was Alvarez and a 2-time loser, brother.
Well, Mark Watson's hand must have stopped just short of the 3 count. And these eyes of mine need glasses because I thought I saw a 3 count Bryan Alvarez going up top.
Oh, we'll forget about your cataracts, brother. Up and over he goes.
Nobody home. Adam Firestorm back in control, playing a bit of possum. He's climbing up top. Is Rento and Otto really upset? There he goes. Swamp
oh, and that one hit.
There's a hook to leg. 1, 2, 3. Now it's all over.
A 2-time loser. And does the LC have to look after Miss Rento and Otto tonight, baby?
There's Adam Firestorm, your winner in this match. Once, twice, 3 times, it didn't matter. Bryan Alvarez not up to it. Miss Rento and Otto absolutely disgusted with it. Mark Watson explaining to him it was a 3 count this time. No hook to leg. Fair and square, Adam Firestorm, your winner here on Portland Wrestling. Fans will be right back with after a message from our sponsors.
Welcome back to the show. Mike Sempervive here with you. You know we do this show right here for an hour at a time every single day, but if you want us 24/7, you can try to find us on Twitter/X. I am at Sempervive. Tom is at Filthy Tom Lawlor. Brian is at Bryan Alvarez. The timeline for this show is at WONF4W, and the broadcaster is at Sports Byline USA. Jim Valley is at Jim Valley. He'll be here with you on Saturday, live every single Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific. And Andrew Zarian is at Andrew Zarian. He's here with you on Sundays, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'd also like for you to make the wrestling news part of your day. Everything you need to know to get your day started, get you up to date, or get you to your favorite wrestling review pod like Dave and Brian on Wrestling Observer Radio. There will be a new one of those up for subscribers after Dynamite tonight. But when it comes to the wrestling news, it's between 5 and 15 minutes long every single day. No clickbait, no speculation, no rumors, no paywall, just the wrestling news. Find it wherever you find your favorite podcast, or head on over to thewrestlingnews.com or at Wrestling News AV on Facebook and Twitter. Filthy Tom Lawlor, how are you, sir?
I am doing good. What a overload of information there, Mike, much like there is nonstop in the world of professional wrestling. You mentioned Dynamite tonight. You mentioned NXT last night, which I did watch.
Ooh.
The Hulu version. Snuck it in there. The final match of Kazuchika Okada in Korakuen Hall. A very emotional time in front of the fans and backstage for the New Japan wrestlers.
It was emotional for me, hoping that he would put Fujita over on the way out. I'll say that. I knew he wouldn't, but
come on!
Why
I cannot
would he?
believe
him.
anyone thought
Nobody thought it, but still.
that Okada was going to lose to Mikey Nichols, Shane Haste, or Fujita in this match.
To me,
listen, Fujita's 0-2 against me. You think he's beating Okada?
Look, to me, it's the exclamation point on the bad year that they had booking Kazuchika Okada and how he did not put anyone over, whether their name was Kaito Kiyomiya or whether it was Shooter or whether it was Tsuji or anybody, not even in a tag team encounter. So I knew he wasn't going to put Fujita over, but it was, the hope and maybe the slight, possibility that he slips on a banana peel. But I guess his L is going to have to come at the hands of Hiroshi Tanahashi, or does it? Does he lose to Tanahashi? Does he lose to Ace President before he departs for North America?
I think he wins.
Really? Really? Is that not then really getting into some sort of malpractice if you're the new president of New Japan and the company itself, and Gato the booker, who has got enough going against him, frankly, in my opinion? But I
believe
really,
that's not his final match in New Japan, though.
Does he lose to Tanahashi? He doesn't lose to Tanahashi?
I don't think so.
Oh, my God.
But I'm quite often wrong, Mike.
Well, he is going to show up. They have the ceremony dates, or they have something going on at the end of February, right? The 22nd, the 24th, I think he said he's going to be making shows, I believe, those days. Am I crazy about that?
I believe that's true. There's also been announced a new Gorillas of Destiny versus old Gorillas of Destiny matchup with LP and Hikuleo taking on Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. It's another interesting match there.
Are we going to see Tama Tonga as a good brother? I mean,
that's probably the best slot for him, I would imagine, both for him and for all the people involved. You know what I mean? He's still got plenty left in the tank.
Absolutely. And he's brand new for people here. I mean, he really is when it gets right down to it, especially to that fan base. He's brand new.
Yeah, and there was no one that had AJ Styles back, despite what the club said, unless we find out that they were beat up and left laying by the bloodline once again backstage. Nobody came to AJ Styles' aid on SmackDown, as 2+ million people worldwide saw.
He's the Ridge Holland of SmackDown. He's got to do it all himself. You saw NXT last night. You know that reference. Ridge Holland all alone, facing Gallus by himself.
You know what
walking
didn't make
the earth, roaming
Mike,
it
you know
alone.
what did not make the Hulu version?
What's that?
Ridge Holland and Gallus.
Well, there was no match or anything like that, but there was a promo that he cut backstage with Kelly Kincaid where he talked about facing Gallus. He had his cup of coffee in his hand, and he talked about facing Gallus all on his own, and he walks off, and then she sat there shocked. So maybe that Ridge can hook up with AJ at some point, and it would be better for AJ if they were partners, because then the risk of him getting hurt would go down.
But
Thank you, Filthy. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right, Dark Side of the Ring officially making its return to Vice TV in March. This story up on the main page of the website. It was announced today that Season 5 of Dark Side of the Ring will premiere on Tuesday, March 5th, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. 10 episodes in the season. The topics that will be covered: Gentleman Chris Adams, Sensational Sherry Martel, Bam Bam Terry Gordy, Black Saturday, Vince McMahon's purchase of Georgia Championship Wrestling in 1984, leading to WWF getting the 6:05 Saturday night time slot, Chris Colt, which is something, The Sandman, Earthquake, Harley Race, Buff Bagwell, and Brutus Beefcake. Filthy, it may be time that we get the third member of Team Filthy, Greg the Hammer Valentine, on to talk a little bit about Beefcake, and he can talk a little bit about Beefcake's wife, which I've heard they don't like each other very much, but that may be a story for a different time. What do you think about this lineup here? And there are some names that are from my generation growing up, like Chris Adams and Black Saturday and, some things like that. You're a little younger. Do those names stick out to you? Do those stories about, have they traveled through time about how crazy Chris Adams was?
Brother, when you read that list off, all I could think to myself was, we are scraping the bottom of the barrel here. If this is what we have left for Dark Side of the Ring, I want to hear some scandals. I want to hear about some nefarious doings by unscrupulous characters.
I think you're going to hear that.
I don't think this is at the level of anything that we've seen in the past seasons. The Von Erichs.
Well, yeah. The Von Erichs. I mean, we've had some heavy stuff. We've had New Jack. We've had, the bizarrety that was the life of Eddie Graham and Matt Bourne. We had obviously
plane ride
from
story. HE double hockey sticks.
We had Marty Jannetty. We had, we had that one. Look, Chris Adams is a story that I think, coming off the Von Erich movie, now may be the time to actually lead off with that one, because he was a world-class story. And yes, he was in many other territories, but he has got some of the nastiest stuff, including a prison stint he had to do for headbutting a co-pilot, I believe it was, of a plane that ended up getting him arrested, and a notorious drinker and drugger Chris Adams was. So I have a feeling that is going to be quite the interesting story when it comes to him. Terry Gordy, again, that's an interesting story, I think, as well, too, that, again, when you look at the name Dark Side of the Ring, there was a dark side over Terry Gordy.
Where's a story about Ricky Dozan?
Well,
there's plenty of things that they could talk about, and instead,
yeah, but well,
just like us, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel.
They are, and you are the Chris Colt of this show, Filthy Tom Lawlor. We'll be back. Wrestling Observer Live.
what was your reaction to that? Because that's something where I was like, this is crazy that this is happening right now.
I'd love to call that a behind the scenes moment, but it wasn't. It was right there wide out in the open. But that is one of my favorite off the wall things to happen in wrestling during my entire career, mostly because of who that lady is. Lisa is her name, and she is an absolute badass. I mean, there are a lot of big burly men that are security guards and protect the wrestlers over there at WWE, but I think every single one of them would agree that Lisa was absolutely the toughest. I mean, she wasn't the biggest by any means, but man, she was not afraid to just dive into something. And hearing her tell that story afterwards about knowing that's Rob Gronkowski and he's 8 times her size, but having no hesitation, regardless of who it was, to put her health out of the way and dive in there to protect us, just mauling Gronk right from the get-go. Oh my goodness. What a think about that for a second. Think about who Rob is and what he's capable of and physically what he can do. And this small lady just diving in there and jacking him up. That was the funniest thing in my head the whole time. I was like, I can't wait to just destroy Rob later for this, about how she jacked him up. But we let her know then. It was kind of, bringing Rob in was kind of a last minute thing. I had heard that I was going to be going over in the Andre, and I was super thrilled about that. I think they had kind of built that storyline to that over a course of maybe like a month leading in. And, we're trying to think of ways to punch it up. And we had this idea to bring Rob in. Rob always wanted to do something with me over at WWE, and this was just the perfect time. So it just made sense, but it was just kind of thrown together last minute, which is crazy for these outside athletes and celebrities. They're not used to just this entire thing, this global spectacle being dumped on their lap with like a half an hour heads up or day up kind of thing. And yeah, we put it together that day, and it was so last second. No one told security. No one told anyone else that was associated with the show. And yeah, then that's what happens.
Throwing things around over here. Mike Sempervive, Filthy Tom Lawlor here with you, Wrestling Observer Live. I just looked down at the chat here, the Twitch chat, people talking about what would be better stories, what are going to be good stories. DJ Convoy, Chris Adams has a darker story than you might suspect. Yes, he does, everybody. That is going to be a very, very dark story. That is for absolutely sure. Ashley Massaro, that is probably one that, I don't know, it's, if people are willing to talk about that one, that's one that obviously with the name Dark Side of the Ring did not end very well. Art Barr would be very interesting as well, too. Art Barr is one of those guys that I'm always surprised, and I get it because he was such a star in Mexico and he was Eddie Guerrero's friend, but I'm surprised his past and some of his past transgressions get, kind of dusted under, and we celebrate Art Barr a lot more. Hey, look, Dom's wearing his shirt and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. I was always kind of shaky with him, but he probably would make a pretty good one too, Tom. I don't know, for you, what are some ones that really stick out and you go, they probably should do this as opposed to Harley Race or Buff Bagwell or Brutus Beefcake?
Well, we were talking during the break, as we sometimes do, and I know that they did a history of FMW, but, kind of in the same vein as one along the lines of Ricky Dozan. I think you could have one about Hayabusa. You could have one about, and this also stems from FMW in a way, you could have Shinya Hashimoto stealing Fuyuki's wife after his funeral. There's a number of things. The Noah Exodus, of course, which had major ramifications business-wise and personal-wise for a lot of wrestlers.
RF running away from perverted justice.
Still running shows.
Yeah, he is. People still doing signings for him and whatnot. Oh, he's just, not to say anything, just pointing that out. But, plenty of things could end up on Dark Side of the Ring. We should probably...
You and I could end up on there one day, Mike, if we play our cards correctly.
And we get Bryan thrown under the bus? Yeah, I guess we possibly could be on there. They could come to us and talk about that. Look, you have the right idea of why have they not done Dark Side of MMA? They did a deal about the UFC, did they not? About in the 90s, Dark Side, Vice of the 90s, Dark Side of the 90s. They did something. I mean, if you think about it, MMA, there are so many stories, Tom, that we know because we've been around for so long and fans for so long and around it, that took place in the 90s that people today have no idea about. And there are just so many stories from the 90s and before that nobody really knows about. I mean, it sounds terrible to say, but much like boxing, MMA is a pretty ripe world to have a Dark Side series about it.
Yeah, any sport in which one competitor, Gary Goodrich, perhaps, has won a fight by twisting another man's genitals with his foot back in the 90s. I think any sport that contains a finish like that deserves to have a Dark Side series about it. And
he said it felt like crunchy peanut butter. Do you remember that? That's what he said. That's what Gary Goodrich said. And the thing is, and this is going to sound terrible, I don't know if Gary Goodrich would remember saying that. And because he's had so much damage, and that's another thing about that series that you could do with so many of those guys from that Pride era, which in some ways was spectacular, but my God, the amount of punishment these men took and how they went into fights when they absolutely should not have.
And we talked about just names during the break as well, like Mark Coleman, Mark Kerr, Phil Baroni, unfortunately.
Randleman.
Kevin Randleman, Stephan Bonner. There's a number of guys, and there's a number of incidents as well. Lee Murray, the most notorious, perhaps criminal in the history of the world, was a UFC fighter. There's a number of incidents, a number of characters.
Well, the Rickson Gracie Yoji Anjo story is not, is only really known for, if you've really been following MMA. A lot of people may not know that story anymore. And really, Rickson Gracie alone as a figure for a story could be very interesting.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know what Mike's talking about, Yoji Anjo, who was a UWF wrestler, flew over to the U.S. to do a dojo challenge. He went to Rickson's dojo and wanted to fight him, and they fought behind closed doors, and the only photographs after the event are of Yoji Anjo just absolutely destroyed, beaten up, looks like a member of the Goonies instead of his normal self.
Baby Ruth. Oh, it was terrible. Absolutely terrible. Mr. 200, Yoji Anjo, was never the same again after that. That is for sure. Hey, look, Akira Maeda. Could you do one show on him? One show is enough for the American fan base. You got to ease them in slowly. But, if this was a Japanese series, you might be able to do 6 parts on Maeda, couldn't you?
CMLL versus Deep.
Hey. Alberto Del Rio, Dos Caras Jr., fighting with a mask on in Pride against Mirko Cro Cop. That's something that, again, unless you were around in the 2005, 2006, I guess that fight took place. I can't even remember anymore, but that seems like it's lost to time now.
Yeah, one of the early Pride Bushidos, if I remember correctly.
Hey, Super Porky had an MMA fight.
Sure did. El Solar fought Suzuki.
Yeah.
There were a number of luchadors, and we didn't even touch upon the Mexican scene when we were talking about what could be on Dark Side of the Ring. So,
yeah,
I don't think that the series itself needs to be put to rest, but I think they could have done a better job this season of choosing subjects.
Be interesting to see how all of it plays out, and that is going to begin on March 5th, Tuesday, March 5th, for people who have Vice TV. Unfortunately, with YouTube TV, of all of the channels that they have, Vice is not one of them, so I'll have to figure out another way to see those shows.
Where does Darkside eventually end up, Mike? Does it end up on Peacock? Does it end up on Hulu? Does it end up on maybe Netflix, perhaps? Maybe
Well,
somebody with all those subscriptions out there can let me know.
yeah, you find out where that does end up. I know it's available for purchase through YouTube after the fact, but speaking of all of these streaming services, Tom, the last time you were on, we talked about what if Raw went to a streaming service, and I expressed my concerns over it. I got to be honest. A lot of those concerns, I mean, in all reality, go bye-bye because of the amount of money that they're going to bring in. I mean, if they kill Raw, no big deal. For the amount of money you got, if it's time to do something later, you can do something later. But I don't think they're going to kill Raw, and it ended up being on Netflix, which is a platform that Nick Khan had talked about wanting to get one of the WWE shows onto, and he has done that now. It looks like it's going to be a much broader deal than just Raw. Obviously, globally, it's going to encompass all of the shows and premium live events at some point, but you had talked about preferring Amazon as a landing spot for Raw. What are your thoughts on them actually moving to streaming, going to Amazon, and or going to Netflix, and are you disappointed about that?
I wouldn't say I'm disappointed, but I thought that with the success that Amazon had seen with the NFL and having live programming on there, that they would have, been the front runner. And I'm not the only one that thought that. I was surprised when I woke up and I saw that Netflix was the eventual landing space. But like you mentioned, Mike, even if they kill Raw by moving it to Netflix, they're making so much money, and by moving NXT to the CW network, they've opened themselves up to a completely new audience that perhaps they wouldn't have otherwise. So I don't think it's a bad idea to take this risk, if you can call it that. One of the biggest things that I'm intrigued by now is the UFC has a rights deal that will be up somewhat soon. And is this a glimpse into the future of what the UFC will do? Will they divest their shows like they did in the past, where we'd have UFC on Fuel, you'd have programming on Spike, they'd show up on Fox, I believe, every once in a while? Are we going to move back to something along those lines? ESPN now has the co-leader, I guess, in mixed martial arts, the PFL and Bellator union, at least on their programming network. So do we see the UFC move away from ESPN? Do we see the UFC stay on ESPN and also add or move some of their programming to other networks? The Netflix stock went way up today. Are other companies going to see that and say, hey, we want a piece of this programming?
Yeah, it's really, there's still some there. Again, it's fascinating for so many reasons that obviously don't have anything to do with inside the ring, which drives people nuts. But I'm really interested in that aspect of it and what happens with the WWE Network, because we're going to have, as it stands right now, at the end of the year, we're going to have a lame duck spot for Raw, and putting it on the network. Look, they didn't announce the WWE Network going to Peacock until January, and then it started up that March. We'll get into more of this after the break, because we got some more thoughts on it, plus everything taking place on Dynamite tonight when we get back on Wrestling Observer Live.
We've almost reached the pinnacle of the tour, but this is one of the most important things. This is the computer This is the workstation where I do the majority of the actual physical part of putting Figure 4 together. I do the writing here, the editing here, of course the phone calls, even the microphone here when we used to do Wrestling Observer Live, which has since died. And in fact, I better put the screensaver on here so this doesn't get burned in the screen. But putting the newsletter together, people understand, it's a lot of hard work and dedication, like 2 to 3 hours per week sometimes I have to spend on it. And hold on a second. Figure 4, who's this? Carl Thorillo? Yeah. Yeah. Hey, listen. Can I call you back? I'm doing something here right now. My fridge? Yes, running. Hello? Prank call. Anyway, this is like I said, computer. Got the TV here. This is pretty much the place. This is going to be a quick tour of the trophy room. This is actually my trophy case. It's made of mahogany, very expensive. But what is worth far more than the case itself is what is inside, and that is the medals from the various sports and the accomplishments that I've achieved during my lifetime. This first drawer here is my gymnastics medal. Here, I got state and such. These are my Taekwondo medals. These down here, amateur wrestling medals. And down here are the 26 medals that I won in the 5-kilometer walk down to the Bothell Landing over the course of the past 5 years. And, you know, I realize that I'm a 4-sport superstar right here, and some people, you know, it might bother them that they haven't had such achievements in their life, but I think that the whole point is that you can achieve anything. You know, if you can make a great pie, you can win the pie eating contest at the Puyallup Fair, and I don't know, hell, if you can eat a good pie, you might win the pie eating contest as well. So there's achievement in this life for everybody.
Welcome back to the show. Mike Sempervive, Filthy Tom Lawlor here with you. Wrestling Observer Live. Big Boss Man Bryan Alvarez will be back on the show tomorrow. We will be joined by Lance Storm tomorrow. He'll be making the hot tag from Filthy. Filthy won't be here tomorrow. Unless Brian's not here again tomorrow and we get another late text. But we'll see how that goes. Tom, before the break, I was talking about just being very enthralled with this deal and what the possibilities could be for the WWE Network, which is going, their deal with Peacock is up in March of 2026, which means they're going to be doing a lot of negotiations, one would assume, this year and towards the end of the year. And we know what the deal is going to be when it comes to Raw having a lame duck period. And I talked about it with Brian. To me, the smart idea is to put that show in its lame duck form on Peacock, because I'm sure Peacock would want the numbers. You know, they already have it anyway. They already have another WWE property. I'm sure they would want those numbers for 2 months. And if I'm Nick Khan, I'm sure I want them to have those numbers as well, too, because I'm still shopping during that time my rights and what's going to happen with them. And I think with Netflix now being involved in this, like you were mentioning when it comes to ESPN, it's great to have ESPN there for programming and content, but one of the biggest advantages that you have is you have an incredible library, much like the WWE library, and then you also have that little addendum of the fact that you can sell pay-per-views as well, too. But You know, I wouldn't think, I had not thought about the UFC before this deal in their library being shopped around really to anyone other than Disney ESPN, but this really does open the door for that.
Not only the library, but the UFC Fight Pass still exists and still shows a number of regional MMA promotions, regional grappling promotions, college wrestling as well. And I don't know what the subscription numbers are for UFC Fight Pass, but I would hate to see those avenues of, money go away for these regional promotions. I would hate to see less coverage of MMA across the board. So I hope that Fight Pass doesn't go the way of the dinosaur. I hope it doesn't even get swallowed up by one of the bigger streaming networks. But, I'm sure it's not the highest priority on TKO Holdings list right now.
Well, it's definitely going to be a priority, though, as it goes along, because TV, once this NBA deal gets settled, we're going to know how much money everybody has left over, because it seems as if WBD really wants it, but doesn't want all of it because it's so damn expensive. Same thing with Disney, ESPN, same thing with other people wanting to get their hands in. They all want a piece of it like it's the NFL, but nobody could afford to have all of it. So a huge amount of money is going to get spent there, and obviously that's important when it comes to AEW, because it doesn't seem as though AEW's deal is going to get done until the NBA's deal finally gets all wrapped up. So we'll have to keep our eye on that as we keep moving along. AEW actually does have a show tonight. As we mentioned earlier on, Adam Copeland against Minoru Suzuki in the Cope Open Challenge. I knew it was going to do that. Will not go picture-in-picture tonight on Dynamite. Tom, are you excited about this? Tony Khan has announced it. It will go commercial-free, just like Samoa Joe and Hook last week. What do you think about that?
Well, in a world where the term dream match is thrown around quite frequently and means very little in many cases, I would actually classify this as a dream match, because never once when Edge was in the WWE and Suzuki was in New Japan did I imagine that these two would share the squared circle. But now that it's scheduled, I can't think of it being any less than awesome.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah.
Are you sure about that?
I want to see it.
I don't know. I never thought about it either, and I don't hate it. I wish it could have happened 5 years ago. I think it could have been a lot more entertaining. And I'll say this. I've seen Minoru Suzuki do Minoru Suzuki so many times now, and I'm always happy when he comes over. I mean, I was there live when he wrestled Janela. I mean, I've seen him wrestle so many people that were so happy to wrestle him. And when he comes over to the States or he does matches like this, I mean, that's what it's about. A lot of people, I hate the match, it's boring, this old guy, whatever. Like, nah, I get it for the people that are working, and I get it for the fans of these guys. But, like, I have seen every incarnation of this match. I don't know what they could do differently here, but it is something different. I mean, that's for sure. And I don't know if you saw Collision on Saturday night, but, like, they just threw this up at the end of the show as the Blackpool Combat Club Kingston Ortiz match was going on. It just popped up on the screen, and it popped the announcers. I don't know if you saw that or not, but it was like, I would have made a bigger deal out of this, and obviously they have on social media since, but a funny way to mention that you're doing this as the open challenge.
What else is on the show, Mike?
AEW Trios champions, The Acclaimed and Billy Gunn, defending against Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony, the former ROH World Six-Man Tag Team Champions. There is that.
Yeah, the gentleman who lost those belts to Billy Gunn and the Acclaim's new partners, coincidentally, Bullet Club Gold.
Do you like the Bang Bang Scissor Gang?
If Juice is out for a while and it appears that that's the case, why not? We know.
Jay White. Babyface Jay White? I don't know.
Was he a heel against MJF?
He's not. Well, no. not in my world. But it's a different.
Ever
world.
since Card Blade showed up, this guy hasn't been a heel.
I do like Card Juice. Card Juice is a nice addition to the group. No paper champion. See what I did there? When it comes to Samoa Joe, who I would keep the ROH, I would keep the AEW World Title on him forever as it stands right now. We are going to have an appearance from him. We're going to hear from him. His top two of the top contenders for his title, Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland, will also be wrestling. Swerve will wrestle Jeff Hardy because he is still in one piece after facing Darby Allin this past Friday. And Hangman Adam Page will wrestle Penta El Zero Miedo. So there is that. Any thoughts on the title scene or any of those matches?
Yeah, I am a big fan of Hangman, Swerve, and Samoa Joe all fighting to be the top star, the big man on campus, the top dog, the sweetest tooth, the most twisted metal, whatever you want to call it, of AEW. The more Samoa Joe, the better. The more Hangman, the better. The more Swerve, the better. These guys have been great, all of them, for the past half a year. And I think that these are the three guys that should be in the title scene in AEW right now.
I agree 100%. And I like Magnum AP. I like this new version of Hangman Page. Look, I know I get it with the millennial cowboy thing. I understand all of that stuff. Look, I believe that Hangman Adam Page, more than any other wrestler, is the heart and soul of AEW. When it gets right down to it, that guy is AEW and everything that it represents, and he represents all of their fans, and I think he does a great job. It's still pro wrestling, and sometimes you still got to, kick ass, and it's time for this guy to kick ass, especially basically being emasculated at the hands of Swerve Strickland. I mean, that's what happened with this whole deal with Swerve coming into his house and violating his child and violating the home and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, and then to lose after drinking this dude's blood? Come on. Hangman Adam Page needs to be a badass, and rebuilding him into that will go a long way. And frankly, I know everybody wants to see Penta spots, and I don't hate Penta or anything like that. I don't love him as much as a lot of people do, but all that stuff, take the glove off. How about Hangman just punches him in the face? How about that? How about that? We don't need a 50-50 match between these two guys if Hangman Adam Page is going to be going for the title. Have him kick a lot of ass, because I assume Swerve is going to kick Jeff Hardy's ass.
I believe technically the punch to the face is illegal, so maybe that's why Hangman shouldn't do it, but you get one at least, right?
Exactly. It's like, all right, fine. He can take him and choke him for 4 seconds, pull him off, and then keep choking him and keep doing that until he's near death, and then you can put him away with a buckshot lariat or something like that. Wardlow faces off against Trent Beretta. Probably going to be a bad day for Trent Beretta. He's going to get killed. Thunder Rosa against Red Velvet. I thought Thunder Rosa looked great. I enjoyed the match with Queen Aminata on Saturday. I'm a Thunder Rosa fan. I hope she can acclimate herself into the mix well, and I hope that they can figure out something to do with her here. But Thunder Rosa and Red Velvet. Looks like Velvet may take her second straight loss coming back, Tom. Seems like they're going to probably do a lot of Red Velvet feels, at least right now, and we'll see how this match with Rosa goes. You think maybe she's going to be on a little bit of a losing streak here to kind of build her up and change her character?
Seems to be a common theme that you can rely upon, and especially after, I mean, it's not like she's a featured character week after week, but now she's been popping back up, been losing matches, so yeah, I would think there's some sort of character metamorphosis coming our way. Do we have anything announced with Tony Storm?
We do.
For
Speaking
tonight?
of character metamorphosis, Timeless Tony Storm and Deonna Purrazzo are going to have a face-to-face. If you didn't see the programming from this weekend, Timeless Tony Storm has owned up to the fact that, yes, she does remember Deonna Purrazzo. Yes, does remember that she's a technical wizard, remembers their time in the land of the rising sun. I don't remember Deanna being in Stardom at the same time Tony does, but then again, my memory's bad and all that stuff. Doesn't matter, but they did some explaining there.
I believe they did wrestle like 7 years ago to the day, maybe, of Parazzo's return. I don't know.
He just had that one queued up. Are you looking at the cage match?
It might have been for the SWA belt. Not sure.
That is an amazing memory. The only thing I really remember from Toni Storm off the top of my head was the fact that she won the Princess Tournament. One of those years over there before she came back to the States. But yeah, Tony and Deanna Purrazzo will have a face-to-face. And then, and actually I don't know what order this is going in, but this is the last thing I have listed here. And then Sting and Darby Allin are going to speak. I'm sure having a response for Matthew and Nicholas from last week, Tom.
I'm sure we're heading towards a matchup that a lot of people are going to complain about.
Are you going to grow your mustache out like that? Why don't you grow a mustache out like that?
Hey,
It's been a while since you had one.
Vince McMahon's mustache is gone, so I was wondering, are the Young Bucks going to follow suit?
You need to bring back the Dan the Beast Severn mustache.
I don't know. Too much toxic masculinity for me. You could tune in to the Dan Severn and Don Fry Toxic Masculinity podcast. Found wherever. Not here.
Found wherever you find Toxic Masculinity podcasts. We'll be back. Wrestling Observer Live.
Thank you for coming. Let's enjoy the Lucha Libre class. Same thing to the back rope. Grab your legs, your knees. When you go down, help yourself pushing your knees to the back. So one more time. Pretty much the same. First the knees, and after the hands. So we go over his head, and we go. Okay? This is one. Oh, this is the other. I know, but he's like that. I know, but he's like that. Everybody stay there. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Nice. One more for this one. One. Better. Let's do better. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay, so now put your head in and your back is rolling in the ring, okay? Okay. After, hold your knees. 1, 2, 3. Get in your... Come on, you got it. You got it. Come on, Brian. Holding the ropes every whole time. So any accident, you hold yourself. You'll be safety holding the ropes. Because the ropes could break it. So you can... That helped me to turn my... Grab, twist, and push your weight over his body.
Back on the show, Mike Sempervive, Filthy Tom Lawlor here with you. I thought Tom was working me there towards the end of that last segment, talking about Dan Severn and Don Fry and toxic masculinity, but there is a toxic masculinity podcast, Dan and Don's Toxic Masculinity Podcast, also known as Double D's in Your Face. That's what it says.
We don't even put ourselves over. What are you doing putting over Don Fry and Dan Severn?
Here's why, Tom, because we talk about your adventures, especially in the state of Ohio wrestling. Well, guess what? On episode 82 here that I have not heard of Double D's in Your Face, Dan talks about recently doing some professional wrestling in Cincinnati and once being a bodyguard for Robin Quivers of the Howard Stern Show. The guys also talk about their strangest purchases, some of their best pickup lines, and give some dating advice.
Oh, boy.
Now, I remember Don Fry appearing on the Paresu Power Hour and scaring the crap out of me via phone. So
remember there was an
Ask
Don Fry. There was an Ask Don Fry segment. Sorry.
Yes, but
on
Don
Inside
Fry
MMA?
dating advice.
All right, fine. I'm in.
We're going to have to do a review of this. That may be the very first ever Wrestling Observer Live Patreon performance here is when we review Double D's in Your Face, Don Fry and Dan Severn. There will be no talk of that on Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave and Bryan tonight. Probably just talk about the NXT that we didn't talk about at all today and tonight's AEW Dynamite. Tom, do you have anything to say to our fine listeners before we get out of here?
Thank you for spending the last hour with us. May God have mercy on your soul.
For producer John, for producer Dom, and for all of us here, we shall talk to you again after a while.